Welcome to the Arrington Gavin Show. Real talk, big opinions, and fearless conversations. From the front lines of politics to the latest in pop culture. From breaking sports headlines to the stories that move the world. Nothing's off limits, and nobody's holding back. Arrington Gavin is here to break it down, build it up, and keep it all the way real. So turn it up, lean in, and let's get into it. This is the Arrington Gavin Show.
What is happening, family? What is happening, family? Welcome to the Arrington Gavin Show, your go-to spot for sharp insights, bold opinions, and unfiltered takes on the biggest stories of the day, whether it's politics, sports, pop culture, or the latest buzz. Look, we're diving deep, keeping it real. So do me a favor, kick back, stay informed, and get ready to join the conversation. On today's show, I'm very thrilled and excited to have a familiar face here on the program. None other than the one, the only Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. We had him on before, probably around a few shows ago. He is currently running for Virginia House of Delegates, District 89. But the one thing that really caught my attention, other than his name is Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. I'm sorry, I had to say it. The man has a really cool name, but also he is young. I believe 22. I believe he's 22. I see him backstage. Hold on. I want to say around 22, 23 age. And so excuse 21. I stand corrected. Wow. That's one thing that caught my attention, is the age, because we're living in a society now where, at least for me on this program, I always want to try and encourage young people to get more familiar when it comes to politics, right? What's going on in your backyard, local, state politics. We see what happens on the federal level 24/7, but I always want to encourage you all to do your research and be very knowledgeable what occurs in your backyard. And this guy, man, I mean, after talking with him, I'm like, damn, I feel like he's been doing this since like forever. And what, you just turned 21? Get out of here. Like, it's so interesting seeing hearing the knowledge and, the expertise from this guy. I mean, fresh out of high school, ran for office. I mean, who does that? It's funny because I'm always asked, hey, Arrington, man, have you ever thought about running? And I'm like, yeah, around the block, I'll run around the corner or something like that. Or most of they'll say, what about politics? I'm like, you don't know me very well. I'm like, I will run away from politics. Now, look, I am fascinated with politics. I talk a lot about it here on the program, but I know my lane. I know my role. I know my goal. I know my, what is my journey going to look like? My journey is to continue to keep these elected officials' foot to the fire. I like to talk crap. I'm sorry. I like to give them hell here and there, but I discuss those who do great things, and I also discuss those who don't do great things. Right? I say it all the time. As much as we can't stand who's in office in the White House right now, look, if it's something that I think that is a good look, I'll talk about it. But if I see something that is totally effed up, guess what? I'm going to talk about that too. And that's just always been a theme here on the program. But long story short, I'm excited because, like I said before, y'all, I have a special guest. Blaizen Buckshot Bloom is back. We're getting very, very close to the end of the primaries for the House of Delegates District 89 in the state of Virginia. All right. So we're going to have a great conversation. Before I move forward, I do have to thank all of those who continue to support the Arrington Gavin Show, taking 1 hour of your time to tune into the program. Shout out to those who are watching us right now on YouTube, those who are watching us right now on Rumble, and those who are also watching us on Goatverse TV. That's right. If you haven't downloaded the app, please do so. It's available in the App Store, Google Play Store, Roku, as well as Amazon Fire. Shout out to those who listen to us on various podcast platforms. Shout out to our listeners in the New Orleans area by way of WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about. You can tune into the Arrington Gavin Show Monday through Fridays, weeknights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Shout out to our listeners in the Metro Atlanta area by way of WDJY 99.1 FM Straight Talk. You can tune into the Arrington Gavin Show. You can listen to us 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, I truly appreciate it. Please continue to support the show. And we're just a grassroots independent platform, keeping it real, zero sugarcoating, giving you great conversations from folks on the left and the right, and in between, and folks that are just doing great things in the community, whether if it's community activists, entertainers, you name it, we talk about it here on the Arrington Gavin Show. Do me a favor before I move forward. Check us out. Follow us on our social media platforms: Instagram, Blue Sky, X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as our Substack. Subscribe to our Substack page. All under the same name, the Arrington Gavin Show. I truly appreciate that. Let's see, what else can I say? I believe that's all I got for you. Before we head to a commercial break, though, let me go ahead and let's go ahead and discuss our fun fact of the day. You know, a tradition we love to do here on the show before we get going with our before we're getting going with our headlines, or like I said, we have a special guest. So I want to get this out first before we get going with everything. So today's fun fact is, did you know? I'm going to discuss the average because I'm over here, in awe of Blaizen's age. I decided to, let me share with you all the number of members in the House of Representatives and the number of members in the Senate that is over 75 years old. You're probably like saying, "Ooh, Arrington, are you trying to start something?" Yeah, I'm trying to make a point here. So in the House of Representatives, there is 41 members that are age 75 and older. All right. 41 as of today, 41 members in the House of Representatives that is over 75. Now, in total, I think we're looking at over 300 or over 400 members. I could be wrong. I'll do the stats after the commercial break just so I can verify. So I don't look dumb here on the show. But yes, 41 members in the House of Representatives at the age of 75 or older. Obviously, we know known folks like Harold Rogers, 87 years old. Maxine Waters is 86 years old. I ain't know Maxine Waters is older than Biden. All right. Nancy Pelosi, 85. I know James Clyburn out of South Carolina is, I think, 81, 82 years old. Now, moving on to the Senate, all right, there's 35 members at the age of 70 or older, right? We got Chuck Grassley, 91 years old. Now, I'm sorry. Where is Chuck Grassley's district at? I'm trying to see who they keep. His constituents just don't vote. I'm sorry. They're literally just saying, let's just get it out the way. Grassley, you go ahead, do your thing. And he's probably a good guy. But I'm just saying, 91 years old. If I was a grandchild, I wouldn't want my grandparent working at 91 years old. And then you have Bernie Sanders at 83 years old. Now, Bernie Sanders, he's feisty, right? But I am an advocate for, let's start making an avenue for the next up and coming, right? A lot of people are giving David Hogg heat. I'm on the side of, like, I kind of see where he's going. I'm not against it like the majority you see now. It's just, hey, it's reality. You have to make way for new blood, new ideas. At the end of the day, it's a rebuilding stage for the Democratic Party. And yeah, that is our fun fact of the day. So my friends, please do not go anywhere. We're going to head to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll have our special guest, Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. We're going to discuss more on his campaign platform, because the last time we had him on, we discussed really just what got him involved in politics, his story. We got talking about so many other things, and obviously within an hour the conversation gets so good you lose track of time. You're like, oh dang it. So this time we want to focus on his platform, and we're also going to discuss other things going on within the Democratic Party as a whole, as well as in the state of Virginia. So please do not go anywhere. You are listening to the Arrington Gavin Show. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks.
Every man has a story to tell. Your ambitions, your achievements, your legacy. Your suit should reflect that story, crafted precisely, designed for impact, and tailored exclusively for you. We work with only the finest fabrics, luxurious wools, silk, linen, and blends from world-renowned mills in Italy, the UK, and India. These fabrics are the foundation of custom suits that exude elegance and stand the test of time. But a suit isn't just about fabric, it's about fit, and it's about confidence, and it all starts with you. When you work with me, you'll receive a personalized consultation, whether in person or over Zoom. Together, we'll explore your vision and discuss your needs, and we're gonna bring your ideas to life. My journey as a designer includes apprenticing under New York-based designer Clavon Leonard, showcasing collections at New York Fashion Week, Algeria Fashion Week, and the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. That experience is what we bring to every suit we create, from weddings to corporate events and everything in between. We specialize in crafting one-of-a-kind suits for life's most significant moments. Dapper Luke has been recognized as one of Baltimore's best menswear in 2023, and I was honored to be one of the 10 designers selected for the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. With over 900 satisfied clients, we proudly serve Virginia Beach and Baltimore, bringing world-class designs to these incredible communities. We don't just make suits, we craft confidence. Your suit will fit your body, your style, and it will tell your story. Book your free online personal consultation today. Visit www.dapperluke.com.
Order your beard care products with Rugged Evolution. We're your local beard care line that supports the maintenance of your full, mature beard. Our line includes conditioning shampoos, moisturizers, balms, oils, shaving lotions, and exfoliating soaps. These products moisturize, hydrate, nourish, and have all the natural ingredients for a healthy beard. Log on to our website or download our app to place your orders. Become a man of distinction with Rugged Evolution Beard Care. And remember,
rugged is the new smooth.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, my friends. Welcome back to the Arrington Gavin Show. I'm your host, your guy, your friend, Arrington Gavin. Again, thank you for staying with us. As I mentioned earlier, I have a special guest, a very cool guest, a very cool guest that has an ultimate cool name, by the way. I know he's getting tired of me just bragging on his Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. Try saying that 5 times. I dare you. I double dog dare you. All right. Anyway, long story short, let me go ahead and bring on our special guest, the one, the only, Mr. Blaizen Buckshot Bloom, candidate for Virginia House Delegate District 8. He's currently running for this for that seat in the state of Virginia. Blaizen, what's going on, boss man? Thank you so much for taking the time out your busy schedule for joining us for another great conversation here on the show.
I'm doing well, Arrington. Keeping busy as we're less than a month out from the primary, which is hard to believe.
Well, you know what's funny? I'm like, well, you know what? Hey, I usually say you need to get your rest, but I'm like, wait a minute, you're 21. Come on, you're fine, you're good. Get out of here. You're probably on your way out, hanging out doing something later this evening anyway. But no, thanks again though for taking the time. We had you on before, really just to share your story, get you familiar with our audience, and it just turned out to a great conversation. So I definitely wanted to have you back on because, as you mentioned, we're getting very close to the primary, to the end of primary season. How has things been going on in your campaign?
Yeah, I mean, to be brief, I think it's been going great. A lot of great conversations myself and from our amazing volunteers, and it's hard not to find somebody in the district that doesn't relate to my upbringing, because it's a normal upbringing that many people across the district and beyond relate with, and so it's been very moving, I guess, for me to sort of see the level of support that we've been getting from the community, and I'm cautiously optimistic going in these last 2 weeks of the election that we'll be able to win the primary and set ourselves right up on a good trajectory to flip this seat in November.
Awesome. Any I'll say this. Any I feel like the closer it gets to any campaigns, any election is, whether if it's primary season or just the general election, once it gets closer to those, once it's time for folks to start voting, it gets a little cutthroat when it comes to, politics. And I don't mean saying, has there been any issues during your campaign, but has there been any obstacles that you're noticing in this, in this season? Again, I mentioned you're 21 years old. I don't know if you've noticed this, but yeah, but like I feel as though in politics nowadays, 21-year-old candidates are never looked at as like a serious candidate. And for me, I feel as though that's like, I mean, for one, I feel as though it's insulting, but two, I feel as though like anybody that is that really has the passion, that is, that says, hey, look, I have what you should keep the door open for, for all folks of all ages, right? But we're seeing now, it's kind of like, we bring up the question of term limits and age limits. So have you, have you ever been, I don't know, has that ever occurred, or has that been occurring for you in this during your campaign, as far as what you talking to, folks within your district? Because I'm, hey, I know you have, constituents that are, much older. So when you approach them and say, hey, look, I'm running for office, do they ever give you that like first response, like, really? What? Like, has that ever happened for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's hard to avoid. I mean, again, if elected, I'd be the youngest person, since the two major parties became the major parties, like in modern Virginia history, to be elected.
Wow.
And in a primary electorate, this tends to skew towards your older, retired demographic, and so just naturally, the doors we're knocking on, the people we're having conversation with, tend to be older. And I can't say that there hasn't been any instances of like ageism where people sort of tend to doubt what I say or my ability simply because of my age and for no other reason. But we've been saying this since day one on the campaign. We need a General Assembly that is representative of both age and background. And it's great to have people who are older. You can't have a government made up entirely of 21-year-olds representing us. But at the same time, if you're looking at 30 and over for who's representing you, then you're missing out on an important demographic when it comes to making decisions, especially, again, we talked about a bit about this last time, when we're looking at especially the implications of COVID and the pandemic and lockdown on our younger generations. I was I was still in high school when we were going through lockdown and trying to navigate what education looked like. And I've been directly impacted by that. And even in higher education and college, sort of seeing how that has impacted our youth, even moving forward outside of the pandemic, that when we don't have those sorts of perspectives, that really are handicapping our government from really having the right voices in the room, the right representation to have an effective representation to tackle those issues. And so, like I said, certainly I can't say that hasn't been an issue, but I think, given that if elected, I'd be the only person bringing that experience to Richmond, I think that makes a very compelling case for our campaign this year.
It's funny when you bring up, you can't have a legislation full of 21-year-olds. The more I think about it, though, at least you could say not most of you guys will fall asleep like we've been seeing a lot of politicians. When it's like pushing 1 a.m. now, at least y'all young, y'all be like, all right, so what we gonna do? No, I'm joking. All right. Enough of the young jokes. Let's talk about your campaign, man. So a few things that I see that I've seen on your campaign. You talk about protecting families, defending veterans, as well as supporting farmers. Please share with the folks, man. And kind of speak more and explain more on those three important things going on in your campaign.
Yeah, well, the root of our campaign, we're running on economic issues. It's what people voted on in 2024. It's what Kamala Harris lost her campaign on, and what the current administration got elected on, regardless if you agree or disagree. And when we talk about our working families, our veterans, our farmers, like most people, the economy, cost of living, affordability is at the top of mind. And so, again, we talked a bit about this before. My father's is a disabled vet. And his inability to get care and to be able to go outside the VA and get the care he needed when he wasn't getting it there is one example where a decade of his life he lost because he didn't have access to healthcare he needed. He couldn't afford going outside of the system. When we look at farmers, here in Chesapeake and in Suffolk, one of the big issues we're seeing with overdevelopment is generally these farmers that sell off their farmland tend to be because they want to retire. And normally you would pass this down to your children. That would be your retirement, but their children aren't interested. And so the only way to have that income to retire is to just sell off your farmland. And the only people interested in buying it are developers, especially those who want to build these big $1 million plus suburban McMansions that are raising average housing prices. And so looking how we can better support our farmers and enact programs that give them alternatives, and even looking at how, with the younger generation of youth who maybe have never even considered a job in farming, looking at how we can engage them with farming and support them. And if they want to pursue that, helping them do like a lease to own, where again, those retiring farmers can get their retirement and the government can help facilitate that, that transfer, especially because generally like an 18-year-old, 21-year-old isn't the most trustworthy lender, and helping them get the equipment they need. That is very important in making sure we're preserving our rural heritage without keeping it in a demographic of people who have traditionally dominated farming and for hundreds of years now in this country, while again not having this rapid overdevelopment that only is accessible to people of the highest income brackets.
Yeah.
And again, just going back to our working families, just more broadly, it's about looking how we can strengthen labor unions, which is what built the American middle class, and trying to make sure that housing is once again affordable and within reach for many families, which it isn't now.
How do you Blaizen, encourage young people, especially those that, like you said, you have farmers that would like to give their land and give it to their children, but children are not interested. They're like, I want to move to a more of a city, like, right, we're living in a tech savvy world. Everything is like, okay, I want to move away from where I'm from. But you're different. You're saying, no, we have to for one, encourage them and let them know the importance of this, right? The rural values that occur within your communities. How do you encourage young people? Because look, you're there front and center, at 21 years old. I mean, you're right there amongst them. How do you encourage some of your peers about that?
Yeah, well, I think, it just starts from a young age in our public school system. And when you think about programs like 4-H that traditionally serve more rural communities and sort of keep our youth connected to those rural communities, to agriculture, to farming, that we're not seeing those same levels of programs being leveraged in our more developed, more urban, more inner city-esque communities. And so really looking who we can partner with organizations like that, get those programs into our schools that, again, children who traditionally wouldn't have any sort of exposure, trying to fund those opportunities so that at the very least you can explore and understand sort of what it's like being in that different lifestyle. And again, even if something as simple as looking how we can support, like urban gardens, those community gardens where, anything we can do to when you're growing up to give you more of that experience. And so maybe you ask yourself the question, maybe I want to be a farmer. And then you have that opportunity to explore it. And if it's not up your alley, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to have those experiences and to have widened your understanding of what life is. And I'm sure even if you don't choose to be a farmer or go into agriculture, that it's going to better your worldview for that.
Yeah, and I brought up, and I totally agree with that. I brought up the question because we hear a lot now. Folks are really not interested in pursuing college, right? They pursue the vocational route. Get me involved front and center, right? Get me, let me do vocational school. Let me do, whether if it's working in plumbing, you name it. I'm just saying there are ways that to me look is more beneficial. And it's funny because I've witnessed folks that will pursue college and said, well, I'm not going to pursue the family business. And then you're like, wait a minute, you are offered like this. I mean, I'm just saying it's a working class. Why not pursue that? Because it's a lot of value in land. We see it now because it just in Hampton Roads, kind of catch our listeners, for those who are not from the area. Hampton Roads, Virginia is in some ways, this certain selected cities are turning into more tourist destination. And like Blaizen said, they're also building a lot of, luxury housing, luxury apartments and this and that and the other, because they want to make it more appealing to the eye for folks. Hey, come on down. And they're just luxury apartment here, luxury. But in reality, it's like the majority, we can't afford that. We can't afford these prices, and it's ridiculous. I want to move on from discussing about the farmers to discuss defending veterans. We're seeing in current times, veterans, every time I turn from corner to corner, I'm seeing a protest that involves most veterans saying, hey, look, I'm losing this, I'm losing that, I just got laid off from, because we have a lot of federal workers in the 7 cities, and coming from what's happening on a national level, it's been hitting hard here locally. How will you maneuver, say, as an elected delegate, how would you maneuver the issues happening on a national level to, you're going to be faced with a lot of your constituents saying, hey, look, what are you going to do for us? What's going to be the pattern? What's the process? How are you going to work through that?
Yeah. So, there's a few aspects that I sort of would love to explore in Richmond. One comes from healthcare, and again, I love the VA. It sadly has been attacked and underfunded over the years, which has made it less effective, and that's the reason why my father couldn't get the care he needed. It wasn't because the VA doesn't work; it's just because it's underfunded. But first, looking at how we can expand, access to the ACA for our current veterans, so that if the VA, for whatever reason, isn't working for you, that we as a state, fund what it takes to enroll our veterans in being able to ensure that they're on public health care in addition to the VA. And so that if they want to go see a private doctor, they have that opportunity as well. And it's really about giving them more choices. If you want to stick with the VA and there's benefits to that, go right ahead. But if it just isn't working out for you, you're on public health care too. Go ahead and go see different private doctors. It doesn't even hurt to get a second opinion. Maybe, for whatever reason, you can choose one or the other, but it's about giving that choice so that, again, when people like my father who are fighting for 11, 12 years to get that care, like, you can really cut down on that when you have more access to opportunity on who you can go see. Two, like you said, a lot of veterans, when they retire, go into the private sector. That's why Hampton Roads especially is so over-reliant on government jobs, is because everything in this region relies upon jobs that are either directly tied to or indirectly tied to the military. And, even my father, when, in his retirement and him trying to do some part-time work to help pay the bills, when he looks for work, it's the places like Lockheed Martin who pay really well. And so he can work, he can only work so many hours, but 5 to 10 hours a week, he's getting paid really, really, really good money, like sometimes like 3-figure an hour, because of the skill set that he brings from the military. And so it's really concerning to see some of these layoffs that are happening and cuts to grant programs that are willy-nilly and not at all taking into consideration. When Bill Clinton did this in his administration, it was very thought through. It took about a year or two to figure out what programs to cut and sort of wean it off so that communities could adjust, as opposed to just chopping programs off abruptly and putting people out of work. And so, one, Virginia really needs to amp up our unemployment programs. As somebody who has done work where I've been laid off because I work on a campaign, it takes a few months to try and get into a different job. You're working like 80-hour weeks at the end of an election cycle. So you can't really look for another job while you're trying to do your job. And so I actually was never able to use unemployment despite paying into that, my employer paying into that, because it's broken. I have to apply for any job. Doesn't mean it's going to be a job I accept. Doesn't mean it's a job that I would be good at, but I have to apply to jobs weekly. And then the pay they're going to give you is like $100, $200 a month, which really
and let's talk about that. I hate to cut you off, but I definitely want to talk about the wages, because we're hearing a lot about, folks will say, look, if we can at least get to 15 an hour, or if we can get to at least $20, an hour, we need better wages. And I have to call myself out on this, because I've been a part of the group that will criticize, saying, okay, look, we're talking about raising wages from, folks that work fast food, this and then the other. I've been vocal. I've been, I wouldn't say vocal, but I have, been on the side of, well, I mean, those are seen as temporary jobs anyway, that, and I have to always kind of look back and be like, wait a minute, Arrington. There's really no such thing as, I mean, if you really think about it, what are temporary jobs? Because for one, folks will say, okay, look, I love what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to doing this. So does that mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's always hard to, you say, hey, that's a temporary job. That's not a permanent job. This and that. I'm like, wait a minute. I can't predict someone's future, is what they want to do. I don't know what they want to do. So I need to stop being selfish. But let's talk about the better wages, right? I see you discuss, better wages for Virginians. Can you, please open up more on that?
Yeah, well, just to start, I support raising the minimum wage to at least $17 an hour, and I also support indexing that to increases in inflation and productivity. And I'm not saying that $17 is what it needs to be at. I think that's the bare minimum. I think $15 is way too low, especially coming out of the pandemic. What I would say is when the federal minimum wage was first implemented back coming out of the Great Depression, that we're not judging people on what are they going to do throughout their life. We were setting a bare minimum of, if you're working a full-time job, that you're going to make enough to pay the bills and have a little extra on the side to enjoy yourself. And so really what we're looking at is trying to build an economy where when you're working a full-time job and you're contributing back to society, that you shouldn't be relying on government benefits to make it through. It doesn't matter if this is a temporary job or a college job, right? Somebody needs to be flipping those burgers at McDonald's when we talk about fast food. Yeah. Somebody needs to be doing that. That's not just going to go away overnight. And so you're always going to have a need for those jobs. You look at Amazon warehouses. Somebody's always going to need to be doing that, right? And so are we just going to be leaving those to our college students who are already unable to afford college tuition? Like, things have become so unaffordable. You look at the rent, and there are other things we need to be doing.
Oh God, sure. Don't talk about the rent. Man,
increasing supply side. But at the end of the day, minimum wage was enacted to make sure that every American working a full-time job made enough money to pay the bills, and it has not kept up. It used to for decades and decades and decades to keep up with inflation and productivity, and it stopped a few decades ago. And we've seen these jobs that you used to be able to pay for college and pay out your bills working a fast food job. And that just isn't the case anymore. And so I fully support trying to get back to how it was before, back when, you had this big prosperous middle class and the minimum wage was a living wage that kept up with inflation and productivity.
Look, I mean, I can't say anything against that. Look, my friends, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have more here with Blaizen Buckshot Bloom, again, candidate for Virginia House Delegates District 89. Don't go anywhere. You are tuning into the Arrington Gavin Show.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to
And we still in traffic.
Don't look familiar, do I? Not in this seat.
Hey, what's that you're listening to?
Here to host today.
Hey, turn it up.
With me?
Yeah, that's that new GoVerse app. I got you.
So y'all want to know where the goats are? They're off on the sidelines.
Looking for fresh, relevant content wherever you go?
What was the name of that he said?
Introducing GoatVerse TV.
GoatVerse, that's what it's called.
The free streaming app that brings you the best podcasts, current events, and thought-provoking opinions all in one place. Download it now from the Apple Store or Play Store. In Goats, we trust.
Order your beard care products with Rugged Evolution. We're your local beard care line that supports the maintenance of your full, mature beard. Our line includes conditioning shampoos, moisturizers, balms, oils, shaving lotions, and exfoliating soaps. These products moisturize, hydrate, nourish, and have all the natural ingredients for a healthy beard. Log on to our website or download our app to place your orders. Become a man of distinction with Rugged Evolution Beard Care. And remember,
Rugged is the new smooth.
Let me tell you something most people get wrong about suits. A suit isn't just about you wearing it. It's how you show the world who you are. It's your handshake before you say a word, your presence when you step into any room. That's why we design statements at Dapper Luke. We don't just make suits. We'll start with the fabrics that tell your story, luxurious wools, silk, linen, and blends sourced from the finest mills in Italy, the UK, and India. Then we'll combine that with your vision, your personality, and your style. Every detail is tailored to you, from the fit to the finish. Whether for your wedding, a gala, the boardroom, we specialize in creating custom suits that are unique, just like the men who wear them. We spent years perfecting this craft, apprenticing under designers in New York and showcasing collections in New York and for Baltimore Fashion Week. None of that matters as much as seeing the look on your face when you try on your custom suit. Over 900 clients have already trusted us to deliver the best custom suits. They trust me to deliver the confidence. We proudly serve Virginia Beach and Baltimore and would be honored to bring your vision to life next. Let's create something unforgettable. Book your free consultation today at www.dapperluke.com.
Welcome back, family. Welcome back to the Arrington Gavin Show. I'm here joining with Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. We're having a great conversation, really focusing, discussing and opening up more about his platform. Blaizen, I want to, ask the question because I'm in, I believe, District 90. Yes, I'm in the 90th district. What are some issues happening in the 89th side of Virginia, District of Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, so we're a unique and diverse district, so it's hard to say one for the entire district. We pretty much the entirety of the North Carolina border of Suffolk is in the 89th, all the way out to Franklin and Southampton County, and so the issues that are out down in Whaleyville and Holy Neck aren't exactly the same as what are up here in Western Branch around Las Gaviatas, and so I can't paint one that brushes the whole district, except for, like we've been talking about, wages, financial security, affordability, things of that nature. I would say out in rural Suffolk, I mean, you're in the 90th, and you're here in Chesapeake. What's going on in rural Suffolk is the same thing that's been happening here in rural Chesapeake. And so I won't belabor the point, aside from saying that, whether it's warehouses, data centers, like these McMansion housing developments, and not really having that open dialogue with the community, that's a huge issue out there. And that's, if you're looking for local issues, probably the number one issue that rural Suffolk is facing right now.
I love what you just pointed that out, the dialogue between the community and the elected officials. I think that's probably something that has been impacting not just in District 89, but across the United States is the dialogue. I mean, I've discussed it so many times here as as GOP members have had their struggles, as far as congressional members have had their struggles with their town halls. One thing that I thought was interesting, when you had your campaign kickoff, you had it outside so that folks could really be like, wait a minute, what are they doing? I thought that I have gone to so many campaign kickoffs, on the left and the right, and I've yet to been to one that was outdoors, and I'm like, okay, I mean, well, I'll say it like this: I have been one outdoors, but it wasn't literally in the middle of a downtown area. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been, some in folks' backyards, and this, I'm in a courtyard. No, you literally did it in the middle of almost like a intersection in a downtown area in Suffolk, Virginia, where folks are always in. And I just thought that was really interesting, because to me, it's like, you really want them to know, hey, look, this is what's happening. If you have any questions, I'm here. You're really focusing on that dialogue, and I think that's an important issue happening right now. Just really just in our society. I want to ask you, Blaizen, why should voters consider you as the Democratic? I want to ask this specifically. Why should Democratic voters nominate you for District 89? Because we are still in primary season. Why should they nominate you?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons, a few answers I give to that question. One, we're not talking specifically about my background, but again, my background is the strongest reason, and this will segue. But I come from a working class background. I know what average people are going through, and in fact, it's what I would say is the largest reason I'm able to work across the aisle on some of the grassroots organizing I've done over the past 7 years, is because I've worked with people, Democrats on the left, independents, Republicans, even MAGA types. and I'm able to work with them because I'm able to get to know them on a personal level and open up and connect our stories a bit. And so what we get through breaking down these barriers is realizing that, oh, we're not that different. And I've learned just as much as people on the right and MAGA wing and Republicans have learned just by breaking down that border and connecting and realizing that we come from similar backgrounds. And we even see a lot of the same problems in our world. We just sort of disagree on how to get there. But at the end of the day, what people really want is somebody who they know, they trust, and they trust maybe isn't going to agree with them on everything, but they trust is going to do what they feel is right. I mean, that's how my father votes, and my father voted, well, he voted third party in 2016, voted for Trump in 2020 and this past year. And, he voted for Delegate Clark, and he voted for my friend, Councilwoman Wright, two Democrats, because, I know them personally. I talked to him about them, and he voted for them, not because he agrees with them, but he voted for them because he believes in them. He trusts them to do what they think is right and to have that open dialogue and open conversation. And so those are the type of people that need to be running for office, that we need in elected office, that even people who are firm Trump supporters, my father identifies as a member of the MAGA movement. He identifies as independent, but as that. And those are the types of representatives that are able to break through those partisan barriers. And I will say, sort of adding on top of that, I have a record of bipartisan, cross-partisan coalition building, especially here in Chesapeake with a few years ago, the Rural Chesapeake Preservation Committee, which was a committee of mostly Republicans. I was one of a few non-Republicans, not independents, non-Republicans on that committee, where we worked in, a predominantly Republican space. Rural Southern Chesapeake is just a Republican space. And we didn't agree on everything, but we agreed that the development that was then ongoing wasn't the right development in rural Chesapeake. And whether that's the rural heritage that contributes to the city or the environmental issues, that we needed to have a change in pace. And so, continuing to bring that willingness to build those bipartisan bridges and go to Richmond. And I'm sure there's areas in policy that I can find broad support with Republicans that I'm more than happy to work with them on, because at the end of the day, I want to get stuff done. I don't care if that's with Democrats or Republicans. I want to get stuff done that helps people, delivers for our communities here in the 89th.
Why can't, and I mean, not saying hey, you should be the voice representing all of the Democratic Party, but I've been pretty, critical of the Democratic Party, just, as far as the higher up. I'll just say as a whole. I'm not saying each individual, but the Democratic Party has been really struggling on, I would say, trying to, for one, get work together. Because what you're just saying here is like, look, I've worked bipartisan with independents, Republicans, but yet I feel as though the Democratic Party, they're kind of shunning the Democrats that are working bipartisan, if that makes sense. I mean, I always feel as though, and I guess that's why I'm always a centrist, because I'm like, there's not one party that can take care of all the worst part. You're gonna have to realize that you have to mix a little bit of that, sprinkle a little bit of this, and then boom, you got an amazing gumbo right there. You that is the way the world should work. But the fact of the matter is, those on, whether if it's on the right working with the left or the left working with the right, they get criticized. And that's what voters really are like, man, I get so tired of seeing this mess. What, like what you just said, why can't that be the majority right now of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think there's a bit of nuance I want to take here.
Okay.
I feel a lot of what we're seeing in Washington right now, when we talk about Washington politics, is on different issues than what I've worked on.
Gotcha.
It'll be on things like, there was just a cryptocurrency bill. There's a lot of criticism. Mark Warner voted for it. The immigration bill, the Lakeland Riley Act before that. And those are more social, culture war issues that we see a lot of divisiveness on between the left and the right.
Gotcha.
Understandably so. And when I've worked here locally on trying to bridge those gaps, those sorts of issues are ones where I say, let's set this to the side right now. We're just not going to agree here, at least right now. So let's not even open that can of worms. Let's focus on these meat and potato issues. When I ran for school board, I worked with the people who the Republican Party didn't even want to endorse. And we didn't endorse each other, but we said, let's have an open dialogue and let's find the areas we agree on. And those areas were on mental health reform, school discipline reform, looking at how we can find more money in our budget to pay teachers more and our support staff more and make sure we increase their benefits. Those were things that we were able to agree on. And so we said, let's not talk about what books should be in school or about the how we're going to treat trans kids. We're going to set that aside. We're not, because we know we're going to disagree, but we have a lot of agreement on these issues. And so those are the types of legislation that I think really need to be prioritized. And so those other bills might get deadlocked, and maybe we can come back around and try and find some bipartisan concurrent. But those are the bills, those meat and potato issues are the ones that need to be focused on. And then those wins really need to be broadcasted, because a lot of what we'll also see in Washington is you'll have this bipartisan support, and then nobody talks about it. And so when that does happen, in rare instances, like it's not even helping show that Washington isn't fully broken, that there is areas of bipartisan support where you get like unanimous or like 2/3 majority votes, because they're just not talking about and advertising it, because you get these political wins by doing this culture war stuff. Yeah. And so, I'm not saying that if I were, in those shoes how I'd vote on the Lakeland Riley Act, but I would say I'd really be focusing on those meat and potato issues. And those are areas where we see people like Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley, where they came together to cap interest rates on credit card payments to no more than 10%. And those are issues that you see a lot of bipartisan agreement, that you see the left of the Democratic Party and the MAGA wing of the Republican Party coming together, focusing on those meat and potato issues. And those are really the issues I'm excited to dig into in Richmond, that I see a lot of support among Democrats, Republicans, Independents, as well as on these two wings of these parties. And I think with some persuasion, the moderates of these parties can come to agree, given that there's such agreement within the voting public.
That's look, I hear you. Definitely agree what you're saying. When it comes to, because you've been involved in again, you're only 21, but I feel like you've been involved in politics since you were like, I don't know, 2. You've been doing, you've had some years up your belt. The issues happening, again, I'm not trying to focus just strictly on the Democratic Party, because I could talk episodes and episodes and episodes about the right. Good God, can I? But right now, I just want to, on the left, the effects that we see on a national level, have you seen that kind of being brought to Virginia? Right? Have you seen the rebuilding stages of the Democratic Party of Virginia? Have you, with your campaign and possibly, speaking with voters, right? Have you spoken with voters who are just simply fed up and like saying, okay, what are you going to do about it? What is this? Where are you? Have you encountered some of those that are just like, it's been like, okay, I hear you. And this, have you encountered some, voters so far during your campaign?
Yeah. So there's been quite a few voters that are upset with the National Democratic Party. There are some that are content, but most people are upset. And it really comes up to how you interact with the Trump administration. Gotcha. That sort of level of collaboration. Because again, like I was saying, there are some issues that we can agree on. We don't even have to compromise on. We can just work fully on those, and we should. There are other issues where, especially here in the base, that feel like compromise is not serving us in any way, shape, or form. And there's people like Mark Warner who will justify and say, well, it's better that we compromise here than sort of let them figure out a different way of doing this, and it's going to be 10 times worse. But my perspective, and a lot of the fighting we see in the Democratic Party, in my opinion, is less on ideology, and it comes more down to sort of how you view working with the Trump administration, that strategy of navigating the next 4 years. And I'm certainly somebody who feels that some of these more authoritarian tendencies of this administration are things that we shouldn't be compromising on. There are some things that you have to stick to your guns and not compromise on, and not worry about, well, it's going to be better in the next 3 years, because you can't just think about the next 3 years. You have to think about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I mean, when we look at the federal deficit, that's just looking at getting political bonus points for the next 4 years and not worrying about addressing this long-term problem. And so my real concern is, how can we not just act for the next few years, but really set ourselves up on the right trajectory, that even if it's not popular in the short term, that we're doing the right things in the long term that are going to help help the most people. And so a lot of the people that are frustrated at the direction of the Democratic Party with some of this compromising, I am too, because I don't see how this helps us in the long term. This just feels like it's going to be less bad 2 years from now. And that's not what I'm concerned about. You shouldn't be in elected office if you're worrying about getting reelected. You should be in public office if you want to do what's best by the people. And if you lose and somebody else comes in and takes your place from either party, then so be it, because it's not about you. It's about doing the right thing.
I do want to ask, I brought in earlier about, age limit and, and even term limit. I don't want to go too much because I really want to, focus this on, you and your campaign. But again, you are of an age that is abnormal, with, the common elected official. I mean, I think in my past, I've probably, shared 2 stories of, folks close to your age that were elected officials in like small rural towns. I can't remember the last story I discussed, but I think there was a gentleman that might have been, I'm gonna just say 19, that might have been elected mayor or something, right? Again, what shocking, but hey, it was true. We're starting to we're hearing now, the questions about age, at least age limits and term limits. If you you would like to share your take on it, please do. If you don't and say, you want to move on, we can do that. But at least I would love to ask you just, your take on any of those, if you will, like to share an answer to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I will say I was the first candidate. One of my Republican opponents has also come out, supporting congressional term limits and term limits in general. I am a supporter of term limits. I've gone back and forth. I will say I think there's valid arguments to oppose them, but I would oppose age limits. And I think as a young person, I can really take a nuanced take here, and that I think we conflate often a lot of age with complacency. People who sort of are in office for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and sort of over time forget why they got there. And there's a quote I want to tie in from Obama that I've sort of heard anecdotally from friends who used to work in the same circles of people who worked with him. And, when Obama was asked why he decided to run for president in 2008, being a one-term junior senator who before that served for a few years in an Illinois state Senate, it was that he had just gone into stardom. And so he wanted to be president of the U.S. while he could still remember what it was like to be a normal person. And he thought if he waited for 8 years for a Hillary Clinton administration and for that to come to an end, that what would have made him the best president he could have been would have been lost. And so I feel that age isn't the issue here. It is people who get elected these high offices and then they just stay there and they forget what it's like to be a normal person. They forget what it's like or why they got there and the issues they're fighting for. And so, and I think Bernie Sanders is a great example, and he announced that he's not going to be seeking re-election. This will be his last term in the Senate. But I'm not going to be one who said, oh, well, Bernie Sanders is too old. He shouldn't have run for re-election this past time. I think he still understands why he's there and his mission, his assignment, and why Vermont wants him there. And so I wouldn't want to kick out a Bernie Sanders because he's too old. But at the same time, there are people who are here for 30, 40 years, and they seem to be more interested in gaming the stock market out and generating a profit for themselves than they do really about legislating for the people that elected them there. And so I think when you have term limits in place, not to say that you can't move up to higher offices and bring that experience with you, but there's only so much you can do, as effective as you can be for, there until you want somebody else to come and replace you and bring in that new experience. You can only contribute so much to addressing these problems till you've given everything you can. And so sure, you can go to a different office, a higher office, whatever it may be, but you also want that influx of new ideas and new people bringing in new perspectives to address these problems. And also when you have a backbench of people who are retired, you also have a list of people you can go to for advice that you can ask, how did you get through this when you were here? Lend me your experience, lend me your perspective. And I think that is also powerful. And so, to get back to the original question, yes on term limits, no on age limits.
Okay, last couple questions real quick because I'm looking at my time. I would like to ask, wait, hold on, making sure I'm not going to lose it. Hold up. I would like to ask, as a, as a Gen Zer, Are you a Gen Z? Yeah. So as a member of the, as a Gen Zer, for those who are hesitant when they again would like to vote for somebody that is of your age, what can you, as a representative of the youth that is pursuing whether it's local office, state office, what can at least share with the folks and say why, hey, look, this is why you can consider us. Please do please do share.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have too much more to add that I haven't already shared.
Yeah.
Again, I think my background speaks a lot for,
I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off. Why I guess the question is to ask, why shouldn't folks not be hesitant to consider someone of your age, as far as voting for them?
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, we need a diversity of age in Richmond. And there's really nobody in my age category that's running this year who currently serves. And so again, we have a lot of younger, like millennials and Gen Xers in Richmond serving as state delegates. But again, I would be the only person, if elected this November, who has been in a public school as a student during the pandemic. And I think that sort of experience is invaluable. When we're looking at, again, we're still seeing the negative impacts, the learning loss that came from COVID, that really just came from that rapid shift when teachers weren't prepared, parents weren't prepared, students weren't prepared. And, having gone through that for a year and a half and then gone into college to continue to experience that at the collegiate level, I think that might be the most compelling reason I can think of, not just to negate my age, but to really see it as a really powerful reason for making sure that I go to Richmond this year.
Gotcha. Ladies and gents, Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. Let me go ahead, for those who are watching, put up his website if you have want to read more about this candidate or have any questions, or if you like to support his campaign. Look, his website is Blaizen Buckshot Bloom, and it is spelled just the way it sounds. Blaizen Buckshot Bloom. Blaizen, any last words you'd like to share with the audience before we close this conversation out?
I'll just say primary day is June 17th. Saturday early voting is on June 7th and June 14th in Chesapeake and Suffolk. Would love to have your vote this primary, and would love to have your vote this November. We're fighting to do good work in Richmond this year.
Awesome. Well, look, Blaizen, don't go anywhere. I just want to chop it up with you just for a couple seconds. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, coming here on the show. Wish you best of luck on your campaign. And again, just in general of changing the narrative. I would say that I'm always a guy that I'm big on changing the narrative when it comes to just, representation, a little bit of everything. And I just feel as though when I hear and I see folks of your age doing what you're doing, I think that's very inspiring. Really, I really do. Cause I'm like, man, I remember when I was 21, maybe I shouldn't share this on radio, but I was definitely not running for office. I was running, but I was not running for office. But Blaizen, again, best of luck to you, boss man. Talk to you in a quick second. So thanks again for your time and chopping up here on the show. Ladies and gents, I hoped you enjoyed yet another great convo here on the Arrington Gavin Show. Again, Blaizen Buckshot Bloom, candidate for Virginia House Delegate District 89. Please check out his platform. I'll put up his website one more time for you all. BlaizenBuckshotBloom.com. BlaizenBuckshotBloom.com if you're curious and have more information. And again, want to support. Here on this program, we get to have conversations with candidates from all sides of the aisle, all different levels. Virginia, North Carolina, you name it. We have them here to have those great conversations, those in-depth conversations that you're not going to get anywhere but here on the Arrington Gavin Show. Look, my friends, y'all take care. God bless. Peace and blessings. I'll talk to you soon for another great episode of the Arrington Gavin Show. I'm out.
That's it for tonight on the Arrington Gavin Gavin Show. Thanks for tapping in and keeping the conversation alive. Don't forget, stay connected with us on all platforms. Follow at Arrington Gavin on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, and subscribe to the official Substack for exclusive takes and deep dives you won't get anywhere else. We're here every weeknight, same time, same energy, same real talk. Until next time, stay bold, stay sharp, and stay true. That's what we do on the Arrington Gavin Show. Peace.